Magnet television.
Magnet television.
Magnet television.
You're watching Magnet television because what else are you going to do?
Hi, this is Martin Bisi. It's okay. You can Google it later or whatever. It's arguable, actually, that I don't even know who I am. But I do know what I do, and here I am in my cave, hovel, as it's been called many times or whatever. It's a BC studio in Brooklyn, in the section of Gowanus, right near the water, very humid, in the paths of superstorms like Sandy and all that. So that's the environment. Funny how this automatically goes into guilty pleasure territory. Inevitably. Weird, huh? But why guilty? But of all the great songs out there, let me apply some criteria. And I think wishing it comes on the radio during long drives, that's one. Being super happy that it comes on the radio. Not wanting it to end. Also saying something that I relate to, maybe at the time when I was figuring stuff out and kind of I related to it. And also like really impressive arrangements and a lot of density that I can focus my ears into, which is kind of the thing I like. I don't like saying orchestration, but this one has some orchestration. So it's Staying Alive! New York City by the Bee Gees! Seriously now, listen to the second half. And there's these great arrangements including these like jabby horn parts, bah, 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 and these like silly string arrangements, which I kind of like ew and woo, this kind of stuff. That was kind of popular in the 70s. Also, probably the only slap bass I can really kind of get my heart into. Sorry, Flea. Sorry, all funk rock, but that really I can get my, that really gets me going. Also, it's funny because that song came out in 1977 in New York City. That was a tough time. 77, the summer of Sam, and the New York City blackout, where the highest number of people still ever arrested in New York City were that night. And I was there. I walked across Central Park, staying alive. And also, my graffiti tag in 1975, I guess I was 14, was alive in 75. Pretty funny. And embarrassing. But I guess I had this whole alive, yes, kind of thing happening. And it had this, that song was kind of fun. It was an antidote for everything else I was feeling, which was no wave and this kind of business. Of all the great albums, I'm going to pull out the stops. I'm going to pick a big album. It's 4 sides, a double album. It's super freaky. I can get into that. It's funny. I gotta admit, over all these years, that a mainstay in the background is I appreciate some humor. And I have to find humor, actually, in a lot of stuff. Although I like it heavy and serious, it's gotta be there. It's got its place. And it's a funny record. It's actually one that, I was really into a lot of proggy, heavily orchestrated stuff, even Yes. But yeah, I was, and, I just like a lot of stuff and just thinking people were kind of going off the page. Whoa, too much, you know. So this record has that. It's too much. It's over the top. And also, it was at another time, it came out at a time in America that was also frightening to some people. I mean, frightening to some people. I didn't find any of this stuff frightening. I liked the 77 Blackout, by the way. And I was old enough to see the 60s. And then, therefore, actually, when I was old enough to appreciate the album I'm going to mention, I mean, this came, I forgot, when did it come out? I guess it was 74, still the 60s, or, well, we'll have to look that up. But anyway, it feels like a 60s record. It was the Mothers of Invention. Freak Out! Exclamation point. Another criterion for this record is it still is safe in my nerding out kind of way, so I can really say it's not a total guilty pleasure. It meets the nerd criterion, and it's there. Who are the Brain Police? Susie Cream Cheese. What's got into you? I mean, it's just endless. And theater. You know, and I think it really spoke to some sort of punk ethics. It also gave the gigantic middle finger to like pop music at the time. That's kind of how it was viewed, even though Mr. Zappa was actually quite an accomplished, songwriter, potentially like pop songwriter person. It also brought in stuff that was like serious avant-garde music. So really it had everything I liked, and it appealed also to my gothy side because, I've been noted to be a little theatrical or appreciate that side, and actually occasionally liked having, theatrical bands actually be in this space. Like, for instance, Cookie Tongue, which came in recently and were very theatrical, and Dubuto and stuff like that, and also the Dresden Dolls at Whiteface. They didn't have the Whiteface in here, but, they were in these little corners. So there's that side of me. And I think Freak Out really just had all that. And very importantly, and this maybe was a little scary to me, is I found that aspect of them, that sort of like endless who the hell knows sort of dysfunction, the sort of like personal anarchy where there are no boundaries, taboo breaking. I found it a little scary, and it was kind of meant to be. I mean, even on the back cover, there's some great liner notes of like, we had these mothers. We had them come to the school dance, and they smelled bad, and they freaked everyone out, and we were like, oh my God, who are these mothers? Mothers, you're freaking us out. So yeah. Eye-opening, changed my life, changed my social orientation. Like, oh, not that tribe, maybe this tribe. There was a bunch of those. But also good, and what do I define as good, right? It's funny because this show, I can actually say, involved some musicianship, which I appreciate. But, I mean, it was good in terms of, like, covering all the pages, of covering everything. Butthole Surfers, I believe it was 1988. And I have a little backup for that on that. And at the Ritz, which was this sort of infamous large venue. It's now Webster Hall, I believe. It's on 12th Street, between 4th and 3rd Avenue or Bowery, something like that, in Manhattan. And wow, this show, like, pulled out all the stops. I mean, you gotta just respect that. Everything. It had projections that were like, and also transgressive, breaking taboos. Sure, why not projections of penis surgery? Interesting, informative. And that's not all. And then there was a woman who I ended up meeting and recording later in this other band called Beanie Seed. There's a woman who joined their collective, the Buttholes Collectives, Kathleen Lynch. So she was kind of performing, dancing naked at the front of the stage, very compelling persona, head shaved, just very cool. They threw flaming guitars into the audience. That was kind of important because there was a time when I just took for granted, honestly, that going to see a live show was dangerous, and there's a lot of danger that I never would have gotten behind, and I don't get behind now. And even then, when I was appalled by some of the violence and the danger for some people and thought it was unfair, the reality was that I just sort of assumed that there was no other way. It didn't even really occur to me that there was another way. I just assumed that came with the territory. And so throwing flaming guitars into the stage, even though it didn't strike me then as like, ooh, dangerous, I kind of realized, I think maybe subconsciously, it just came with the territory and kind of necessary. And I think that shows and music that generally was, good for you in some sort of like traditional or mainstream or commonplace or boring kind of way wasn't really any kind of experience I felt a part of or wanted to be a part of. So that show was great. One thing that's kind of interesting about it is I was in the middle of recording a White Zombie, or doing overdubs actually, on a White Zombie record called Make Them Die Slowly, which came out in 1989. So I'm pretty sure that this concert that I'm talking about was 1988. And I saw Rob Zombie outside after the show, walking down 3rd Avenue. And he was like, oh, how did today go? Because it was a little weird. He didn't really necessarily come to all the sessions. We were doing guitar overdubs. I was like, yeah, it went great. Apparently, he told someone else that I was being evasive about the session, and actually, it went great. I don't know what he thought I'd give him more. Just it was awesome. But anyway, here's what's interesting: is it surprised me to see Zombie there because I knew that record that he was recording with me was supposed to be metal. He went to do a metal show, and actually, I mean, metal record, metal production, as much as possible. And then I kind of thought the Buttholes were kind of not really metal. In some ways, seemed kind of anti-metal because they're not very precise. There was a lot of like hair issues. Well, actually, Zombie had hair issues too. But anyway, they were more like hippies. Zombie was sort of like not. Back then it was kind of weird because he obviously wasn't trying to do hardcore music, which was the short hair tribe, but yet I thought it was metal, and then Butthole Surfers was kind of hippie. It was kind of like, but I kind of realized that the commonality was a sort of like cinematic B-rate horror of horrors with the penis surgery projections. Then it's funny, seeing him outside, I kind of go, oh, and I kind of understood, because I really thought that me and Zombie were coming from like two different kind of places, and I was trying to find where we meet, and we actually met outside of the Butthole Surfer show. You know what actually does embarrass me? I'm embarrassed by my first album cover. It's for a lot of reasons. I actually think that maybe these days it might seem a little inappropriate, and I can dig it. It's like, well, why did I really have to? I use a Kachina Native American, like a Pueblo Indian Zuni Hopi image on my face in it. Why did I do that? I was young. My first solo record. Okay, well, not young enough to excuse much, but I was in my 20s. It is there. I can be self-critical of it. I think it's dumb, but it's there. Even the title is dumb. Creole Mass. Separate topic. The main thing is the cover, I think that the thing is that I was having a hard time coming to terms with the here and now, America, the modern world, and this time period. So everything, even the name of my studio, BC Studio, was sort of intended as before Christ, like the era, the humongous era of humanity before like the year zero in the so-called Common Era. So, a sort of primitivist, I don't know, it's maybe not the right word, but sort of attitude of like, cultures that were sophisticated, but, and evolved really, but, didn't go down this path that we've gone to in this modern world. So I really related to that. Also, I was a first generation immigrant. or child of immigrants, right? So my parents were Argentinian from South America, which I'd barely been to. I'd been to a bunch when I was a kid, but that occupied my brain. Like even thinking about South American music, I was like, well, in Argentina and that identity, even though I would never use the word identity then, and I'd like to think that for one reason or another, I maybe have the privilege to try to not think about identity. I'd rather not, so there you go. But at the time, maybe that was there something inside of me? That's what's inside. And now I know that what's inside has very little to do with any kind of other culture or culture in general. I just do what I do, and that's culture in a sense. And I like other cultures for sure, But why put it on my album cover? But that's there, and I hope it doesn't get talked about too much, but it's the truth. There's nothing else that I'm still genuinely embarrassed by. This is me, Martin Bisi, and you are watching Magnet Television. But guess what I was just doing? I was actually reading an old issue of Magnet. Very good. Big, thick magazine. Conversation with Christy Hind. Good stuff, a lot to read in here. So yeah, Magnet's been around for a long time. So I'm actually very happy to be on Magnet Television, and hope you are too.
Cine.